Donald Trump's real estate business has been hit with what is being called the maximum possible fine for a number of different crimes that they've now been convicted on. $1.61 million that they're being penalized for tax fraud amongst many other crimes. And I want to give you all of the details. So back in December, they were convicted of handing out off the book gifts and compensation to their top executives. So this is a sort of an update to what had been going on not that long ago. One of the executives involved in that scheme, Alan Weisselberg, who I'm sure you've heard a lot about over the last year or two, pleaded guilty and testified at the company's trial. He was sentenced earlier this week to serve 5 months at the Rikers Island jail complex. So he individually is going to be spending time in jail. Spoiler alert, Donald Trump, as always, will not be, despite however involved in this he might well have been. Just Alan Weisselberg on the actual time spent behind bars. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some consequences. The tax fraud trial, which ended with the company's conviction on 17 counts of tax fraud, a scheme to defraud, conspiracy, falsifying business records, hinged on whether the executives at the Trump organization who collected the off the books perks did so to help the company. And that's really where, when you talk about New York law, it really matters. Did you do this just to benefit you, or was this scheme to benefit the company, which has broader ramifications? So in the case of Alan Weisselberg, he received an array of lucrative under the table benefits, including a rent-free apartment, how nice, free Mercedes-Benzes and private school tuition for his grandchildren. And it's always good to see perks being given to multi-millionaires who definitely don't need them. But anyway, in his testimony, he made clear that the Trump organization had also benefited from this because in exchange, effectively, for the perks that he was being given, they didn't have to pay him as much in salary. And because they weren't paying as much, they didn't have to pay as much on taxes on that as well. So he benefited, the Trump organization benefited. They tried to make the case in court that they had not intended any of this. They didn't benefit. It was all Weisselberg being Weisselberg. But the judge and the jury appear not to have bought that. And so Weisselberg is certainly going to pay, but the Trump organization will as well. Francesca, what do you make of this?
I mean, 1.6 million is a drop in the bucket, and we all know Don Trump Jr. just ups his cameo rate every time the organization or the family is in any kind of financial trouble. So they're gonna find their way out of this. It's really, the reporting on this is interesting because they're like, it's a stunning penalty, and then it's like 1.6 million, which is so little. And also, you have to imagine. I mean, on that, so let's put that aside. But also, I am happy that another Trump stooge is actually seeing the inside of a jail cell. That is Rikers. This is the second time someone from the Trump team has gone to Rikers. Remember Paul Manafort? Again, we're getting closer within striking distance to the big kahuna. But like, I am curious because it's 5 months. It probably would have been a lot more had he not been cooperating on this. Or what is he cooperating in terms of the other cases, the other charges that are currently still out against Trump and the Trump organization? So I'm interested to see how this plays into that.
Yeah, Mas?
Yeah, I think as you both alluded to, it's Trump keeps getting away with stuff. He's kind of like a Batman villain. He's like the Joker. He's like, he won't get me again next time, Batman, and he's off, and someone else is paying the penalty. So first of all, Weisselberg is he's got, I think, 5 or 6 months in Rikers, which is a pretty serious place. So for a man of his age and all, that's going to be tough. The 1.6 is. You can't even say slapped with a fine. They got flicked. I mean, that's all. They need to raise that amount, because, for example, like TYT could be paying me in pens. I'm not saying they are, but they could pay me in pens to avoid paying taxes, and they won't be slapped with much more of a fine. Right. So the point is, there needs to be more. There needs to be more than 1.6 million. That's nothing at all. And it's clear, of course. The guy didn't get a Mercedes-Benz, he got Mercedes-Benzes. I don't remember when the last time was I used Benzes, okay? So these people are corrupt, you understand? They were paying for his grandchildren's private school tuition. I wish somebody would pay for my kids' private school tuition. Can I offer TYT? Can we talk here? My point being,
you settle with the pens, Maz. You just
Penzes.
You keep your pens. You keep your
I get
Penzes.
Yeah, they get Benzes. I get Penzes. That's the problem.
That is definitely a problem. We're gonna work on it. So really fast, let's stop for a second, and I want your quick reactions, specifically for Weisselberg. So 5 months. Whenever you hear a jail sentence like this, I instantly think, okay, is that satisfying? So they were doing this for years and years and years. They knew what they were doing. They were defrauding people. That said, if you told me I was gonna be spending one night in Rikers, I would be like, I would really prefer not to. So 5 months for a guy that age seems like a lot. Gut reaction, starting with you, Francesca, is this commensurate to the crime?
No, white collar crime is never commensurate with the if and when there are any penalties, right? It's like, I mean, for all I know, we are often told this stuff is legal. Oh yeah, you can totally buy Mercedes Benzes and give college tuition or tuition to someone else's kid in order to avoid paying your taxes. Like all these, like again, the amount of other tax schemes that are legal, knows no bounds. So there's that. On the sentence for Rikers, look, I believe Rikers jail should be shut down, and I don't think it should be replaced by smaller jails, which is now a push in New York City. No, it should be closed unless you worked for the Trump organization. That is the only case in which I believe Rikers should stay open only for Trump officials, maybe expanded to be like only white collar criminals, and I love it.
I think, I don't know if you guys heard, but also after when it came time to sentence, they revealed in the process, in between the sentencing and when they found him guilty, that he'd been paying his wife some money so she could get Social Security benefits. She didn't work, but they basically scammed the American people to give the wife Social Security benefits. And the judge said, I would have given you more time, but I found out about that later, which again, I'm like, is that a thing? Can't you just be like, yo, we found out you committed more crimes. Like I found out about the murder afterwards. So I said, I'm only gonna give you a jaywalking ticket. If I'd known about the murder earlier, I would have given you penalty for the murder as well. So I think he should pay more. First of all, I think they should take a lot of his money. And secondly, as for Rikers, look, like you said, John, I'm with you. I don't wanna spend one night in Rikers and Weisselberg being Trump's accountant. He needs to he needs to stay away from the gang, the Democratic gang. There's Democrats there who might attack him. Like if he finds like an NPR gang, he needs to stay away from the NPR gang. He needs to punch the first NPR guy in the nose to show him he's tough to last these 5 months.
The NPR guy can't really throw a punch back, however, so it's not really a fair fight. NPR guys they're soft. JK, I love NPR sometimes.
Yeah, avoid anyone with like a Nancy Pelosi neck tattoo or anything like that. Okay, let's return to something we were talking about earlier. Let's talk about $1.61 million and what that represents. So as Francesca has said, that's what the Trump organization has to pay, and it's obviously a tiny drop in the bucket. Although, as I talked about earlier today on the damage report, everybody's saying that's a tiny portion of what the Trump organization takes in, but according to Trump's taxes, it loses money literally every single year. So maybe that's why it won't be able to break even. But when people read this story, they read that it's $1.61 million, and the first thought is, well, that's clearly not enough money. And then you read, well, that's the maximum the judge could do. And when I read that, I think, oh, we've identified a crime, the one that the Trump organization did, and then there's this other thing that should be a crime but isn't, which is to write the law that produces this system. Totally legal, right. Nobody broke any laws, but it's not like an AI chatbot generated that maximum penalty. People did. People who live in New York, who probably go to dinners with people like Alan Weisselberg and maybe serve on the board of corporations. And so whenever you hear that like there was a big insider trading thing, and as a result of it, we finally got them and now they need to pay 1% of what they made from the insider trading. It's like, oops, we goofed. No, you didn't goof. You guys did this. And so there are people pushing for the law to be changed. Alvin Bragg is the Manhattan district attorney. He called in a statement for the state to change the law, quote, so that we can impose more significant penalties and sanctions on corporations that commit crimes in New York. But again, it's not like it was a mistake, and it's New York, by the way, which means it's not like that it was likely it was just Republicans who did this. This is a Democrat scheme, basically, that they set up preemptively years or decades or hell, I don't know, 150 years ago to make sure that if you ever, through a combination of like unending media attention and pressure from regular people and how indisputable the crime is, that finally you get to charges and a conviction, even then the slap on the wrist. Okay, we should be tracking down the people who voted for this, putting pressure on people in office right now to change the law to make sure that nothing like this happens in the future. What do you all think?
It could also be, sorry to jump in real quick, it could also be, John, that back when they passed this law, 1.61 million was a lot. That could be the case too. This could be like 1929. They're like, we'll get that guy. 1.61 million will ruin him. They're like, you guys like, let me see what I got in my pockets. Here you go.
Absolutely, and look, he's gonna be alongside people. Rikers is a jail. There are people being held for like minor drug possession at Rikers, nonviolent offenses, who cannot make bail. And that's the reason they're still being held. And we know like the incredible, horrible conditions at that jail. So again, again, with the January 6 rioters and how they're like, the prison system's terrible. It's like, oh yeah, buddy, it is bad. So I don't know, maybe Weisselberg will turn a new leaf and dedicate the rest of his life to, abolishing the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold my breath, but I just want to put it out into the universe.
Francesca, there is precedent. I mean, we don't go one day without Marjorie Greene once again pushing for her vote on her bill to get rid of solitary confinement across America, because she's seen what happened to these political prisoners, and it has melted her icy heart. No, they don't actually care. It's a convenient talking point. They don't want any systemic change because it doesn't actually really bother them. Anyway, it is frustrating that Donald Trump continues to effectively skate by. I know that there are some consequences in this for Donald Trump. The fact that his organization has been convicted of a whole bunch of felonies and all that, that's not great for him. In theory, maybe it'll sway like one voter in Georgia in 2024. But if you are out there and you think that Trump had no hand in this, that it was Weisselberg and some other rando executive or whatever, Trump never pushed for any kind of tax fraud or insurance fraud or anything. Like, you are one of the most gullible people in the world. And you might well have voted for Trump in the past. But anyway, it is frustrating. There's progress, but not nearly enough. Okay, any final thoughts before we take our first break?
I guess I just want to say that I think that this kind of tax scheme is really common, right? Like, again, like I'm saying, these are illegal tax schemes in the state of New York. You cannot give gifts in order to reduce the tax, what you're liable for as a company. But how many corporations are doing exactly this? So again, the Trump administration has opened our eyes to so many things that were already undemocratic about our political system and our economic system. So don't just stop at Trump officials. Let's use this as an opening to go after everyone else who's collecting Mercedes-Benzes so that their company can avoid paying more taxes.
And I will also piggyback that with this whole hiring of new IRS agents. I never thought I'd be rooting for more IRS agents, but if they're really doing some grand scheme where they're going to pull the wool over our eyes and come and take taxes from everyday folks, I believe the goal is to do precisely what you were just talking about, Francesca, which is to go after these corporations, because right now they don't have enough manpower to go after all these rich folks who've got enough of their own manpower to be able to run these schemes. So hopefully these new agents will be able to collect on some of this money, and we can start going after them.
No, sorry, I just have to jump in. That's such a good point, because everyone's like, oh, the tax returns, where's Trump's tax returns? Yeah, it's in the hands of one sad, sorry IRS agent who has mountains of documents, has no way to get through them all. And it's like, oh, right, we forgot how this all works. And so yes, we will. I do not think the Senate will vote to actually defund the IRS in the ways that the Republicans in the House want to. But that's a really important point that Maz brings up.
Yeah, and to tie those two things together, like the fact that up until like last year, you had 3 people working at the IRS or whatever, and the only thing they had time for was to audit people with incredibly simple things. That was a goof in the same way that a $1.61 million limit's a goof. It was set up that way by Democrats and Republicans to make it impossible to actually get the rich for their crimes.
John, actually, IRS was the initials of the 3 people that were there. It was Ingrid, Ralph, and Steve. And
I was wondering what that was about.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.